Hey folks, Micah McGee here. This video is going to make several people very happy because this has been highly requested. I've been wanting to do it. What it is, we're going to go out here and we're going to take some soil samples. I went by the co-op today and got the soil sample bags. I've got to fill them up. Now the man told me, he said, you know, it's been raining a lot. You can't put wet dirt in these bags and send them off. So I've got to do this basically in two stages. I've got to take the soil and put them into a container, take them home, put them on my wood stove and dry the dirt out before I package them and label them and send them off. I'm going to do 4 different fields. This field here, we're going to call this field number 1. This is the first field I come to when I come on my property, and as you see, I've got soil showing. The last 2 years I have had, in my opinion, underperforming clover crops. When it gets warm, it'll fill in, it'll grow pretty tall, it'll look great, and then when I plow it in, it does good. And I grow corn. Last year's corn crop did very well considering that we had a pretty bad drought. But notwithstanding, this field was much drier when we put the cover crop in than the field directly behind the camera, which is field number 3. It still had a little moisture in it. I think it's because the year prior we did wide spacings with our corn and planted soybeans in there, and that got about waist deep, and we disked it in and put our clover. That's just my thought. I think I have way better humus. What I'm going to do, I'm going to get out here in field number 1 right now. As you know, I have not put chemical fertilizer on this field since I started my channel 6 years ago. Strictly cover crops, and as far as the nitrogen goes, strictly clover, crimson clover. And 6 years of growing corn in a row on the same property and having consistent yields, amazing. But I got a feeling that there's more to it than just nitrogen. I got a feeling that I may need to add something. So I'm gonna get out here and fill these cups up real quick. I'm gonna do 1 cup here in field number 1. 2 days ago, when I come pulling in here, this field was covered with wild turkeys. If I could keep wild turkeys on here and keep them pooping, we wouldn't have no nitrogen issues. All right, I'm just gonna take a bit of soil here. Even though it's wet, it's still kind of nice and loose. I got to get enough to fill the bag up to a certain level, and I think we've got it here. Definitely damp, wet soil. Now I got to put field number 1 on here. Number 1. Field number 2 is the hillside straight over here. So let's go look at it right quick. Here's field number 2. It's a hillside. The first thing I ever planted on this hillside was potatoes, and that was 2 years ago. I followed that the same year. As soon as I dug the potatoes, I planted a really nice crop of soybeans. It grew deep and thick and nice, and I just let it die down in the fall, in the winter, and in the spring. I followed it up with a corn crop. I actually did a crop of clover between the soybeans and the corn. So it had a double whammy of nitrogen, and I mean, it really was good. So let's get out here. I'm gonna go about halfway down the hill to get, you know, as decent of a sample, as average of what I've got going on here as possible. This is a little rockier soil, but I'm not too worried about it. Let's just dig in here and get us something. All right. You can visibly see red clay is in it, rocks in it. Number 2. All right. Field number 3 is a field I really like. It really produces. Let's go up there and see it. All right, this is the field that sits in front of my deer blind. You can see it right there plainly. This is the field that I double cropped, and I am absolutely tickled with how it turned out. but I want to get some soil off of it. There are unbelievable clover roots down in this ground. Look at the roots on that clover. Unbelievable. That's going to produce so much nitrogen. Just absolutely insane. And it may not be reflected in this soil test because the nitrogen hasn't really developed in it yet. That's one thing that I think this soil test, I'm not really going to take into account much whatever it says about nitrogen, because my nitrogen is just now growing. All this is going to be plowed under, and that nitrogen will time release as it rots, and all summer long as that corn grows, that nitrogen will just keep being pumped in that soil. So I'm not too worried about nitrogen. I'm concerned more about other things. I don't even know what other things I'm worried about. There's something I think called boron that corn needs. I don't know. I want to go by what the co-op tells me. This is field number 3, and I've got it. I cannot wait to see what it says. I know humus is great in this field, and it has grown 15-foot 3-inch corn. Unbelievable what I have done with this field. And if you really remember back about 5 years ago, this field right here was so bad that I had to come in and put like $550 worth of chemical fertilized, just to save the crop. It was turning purple and yellow and all kinds of stuff. And I saved the crop with the chemical fertilizer, but I came in immediately with the crimson clover, and that was the year that the light bulb went off in my head. And I was like, whoa, this is amazing. I have not touched it with fertilized since. So the best crops ever since I started using this clover. So anyway, let's go to field 4. It's over closer to my house, and let's get a sample over there. All right, as you see, this is my field at the house. Still got a little bit of standing stalks here. They've been picked. And I've got clover and wheat also growing out in this field. You can see my old silage pile here. And so we're going to get out in the middle of that field and get us a sample. Well, I thought we picked it. Let's see here. This is a field of yellow watermelon corn. And that's exactly what we got here. Been all winter long, and them shucks are thick, and they kept it dry and good. I really am impressed with the shucks. Thick shucks on this corn. It makes great silage, and I've used it, I mean, for several years now. But the boys missed one. This is really good looking dirt. It's nice and dark. It's got the sandy loam features. It grows good corn, and it seems to grow decent cover crops. This is the last cover crop I put in, and I'm highly interested to see what field number 4 does. And now I've got to get this soil in the house, get it drying out, so that I can fill these out and send them off and see what is the deal with this soil. All right, we let the dirt dry out for 3 days. We set it up there on the wood stove. I believe it's dry now. Kind of melted one of my bowls. I can still read number 2 on there, but it was identical to this one, and now it is a good 1.25 inches shorter. But that's life in the fast lane. It took a while for this dirt to dry out. We have been having some serious rain. There's a line right here. It says fill to this line. I've already got them filled out, saying which field each one comes for. This is number 4, and this is number 4. So Mr. Caleb's going to help me here, because this has a potential of being disaster. just pour it right in this red. This is made for canning jars. We're gonna pour it on in here. That's dry enough. Yes, sir, it is. Okay. Oh, I think we overfilled it. Just set it right here and I'll pour some out. It says fill to this line. I'm sure there's a reason. There we go. Fresh baked soil. There's number 4. This is number 3. This is number 3. Thank you, sir. All right. I'll try to wash you better this time. Go ahead and start pouring. Number 3 is the field in front of the deer blind. Stopped right there. Let's see. Nope. It might take more on this one or all of it. I don't know. Yeah. This is the field in front of the deer blind, and it was one of my favorite as far as the way the soil was. It was very nice soil. Here's number 2, and it's the hillside down there where we started with potatoes, and then we grew corn. Well, we grew potatoes, soybeans, clover, and corn in that order. And we never had chemical fertilizer on that field. That's real dusty. Pour it all in. Very good. And field number 1 is the very first field you come to. It's the field that you got your big 7-pointer in. Dump it all in. There we go. All right, I gotta take this and drop it off at the store. They're gonna send it off somewhere to a lab, I guess, and they're gonna test it. And I don't know if they send me back the results here to my address, or if they call me and I go in. I don't know. I've never done this before, but it's time to do it now. Let's do it. Looks like several bags here. The lights is on, but nobody's home. Where is everybody? Well, a guy finally come in there and took care of me. And so he was trying to get my information and stuff, and I'm in their system, but he asked me, he said, so you do buy your fertilizer here, don't you? And I said, I don't use fertilizer. Oh, okay. So he got a funny look on his face. And so we did our thing, and he asked me about it and if it was hay ground or what. And I said, no, it's corn ground. I said, I just have a YouTube channel and I show people how to raise crops of corn without using fertilizer. And he got a funny look on his face. And I said, yeah, I've been cropping these fields with corn every year for 7 years. And last year was very dry. And so my corn didn't do the best, but still got about 10 foot tall. And that changed the look on his face until a look of interest. So we're interested to see what this soil test shows. He said it'd be a couple weeks. So I say, let a couple weeks go by. All right, I finally got my tests back on all 4 fields. We're gonna start with this field because we call this field number 1. And so I discovered some things, some answers. Why? I always wondered the last few years, why are my cover crops not growing good in this field? Now my corn was growing pretty decent, but I attributed that to the crimson clover throwing the nitrogen to it, because corn is mainly a nitrogen feeder. So in this field, over the past 2 or 3 years, I've noticed fairly poor cover crops, just the way it is. Now once the spring rain starts and stuff, it will start flourishing, but I still have these dead spots out there that just don't want to come up. I've gone over it with seed more than twice, and it's just the way it has been. So this is the only field out of all 4 fields that is calling for a heavy amount of lime. It's calling for 2.1 tons of lime per acre here. This whole field altogether is about 2 acres. Now, as you notice, I did plant my potatoes over here. You probably saw that video already. Well, potatoes don't require a lot of lime, so they should do good in this field, but I moved my potatoes around so much, they won't be here again for about 4 or 5 years. So I've got to lime this field. That is the reason I think my cover crops aren't growing good here, is because of the lime deficiency. And when there's a lack of lime, you have other problems. I believe it locks up your phosphate, doesn't make it available, and different things. And as I see here, I do have a phosphate issue as well. Now, every one of these has the exact same thing for nitrogen. It's calling for 240 pounds per acre. And I asked the guy, I said, why is that? He said, we do not test for nitrogen in soil because nitrogen only has a life of 80 to 100 days. So we're not going to find anything anyway. And I said, okay, well, that makes sense. So nitrogen I'm not worried about, because I grow my own nitrogen, and it is basically time released as it rots into the soil. And I have seen year after year after year. That's been my prime corn thing. I've shown you every year how my corn does so good. So I'm not worried about nitrogen. Potash, I need potash on this soil, and 210 pounds per acre. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get my wood ashes, because I burn wood year round. I have 2 wood stoves, winter stove, summer stove. Hardwood ashes are not hard for me to get. So I'm going to get that. I'm going to put it on with the lime. Wood ashes also have a liming effect on the soil. So I don't know if I've got enough ashes to really meet the criteria, but what I'm going to do is use all of what I have. And then next year I may do another soil test and see if we rectified the situation. Also, I need 27 pounds of sulfur per acre on this, and almost a pound of boron, and almost 9 pounds of zinc. So I'll look into that and see what can be done about that. I've got a spreader for my tractor now, so I'll be able to spread this stuff relatively easy. I know that when I lime it with the natural limestone lime from this area, it takes a matter of months before it even assimilates into the soil and becomes available to the plant. So we're not going to see huge results on that immediately, but by the time we put our cover crop in next year, we will, and I'm excited to see it. This field has a pH level of 5.6. That's the only field I had in the range that was below acceptable for growing corn. You need it between 6.0 and 7.0. I didn't hit it, but the lime, it will make a difference and bring it back where it needs to be. I can't wait to see results next year. Right here is a word that I didn't know how to say. It looks like cation, but I looked up several different YouTube videos how to say it, how to pronunciate it. Cation.
It is pronounced as cation. Cation. An ion with a positive electrical charge.
Huh? Okay, whatever. What that means is that percentage, 8.5 on this particular field, is how well the soil can hold the nutrients and make them available. And it also has something to do with how well the soil holds water. I have another field that did way better, and I'm going to explain to you why it did better. And I'm going to do that on this field this year, and I think I'm going to do it on all 4 fields. Let's go on to the next field and talk about it. It's field number 3 where I stumbled upon great success. Accidentally, I don't think so, but it was better than I thought. Let's head on. All right, this is my hillside. I've never put anything on this. No lime, no fertilizer, no nothing. I started out with potatoes, then I went with soybeans, followed by crimson clover, and then I grew corn, had great results. Let's see what we got here. This says we're very high in calcium on this field. I've never limed it. It says that we are very high in manganese, which I don't know how that got to be the case, but it is. Magnesium is at an adequate level, but we're low on phosphate, potash, zinc, boron, and sulfur. So I've got to deal with those. It's calling for just a little bit of lime, just a little over half a ton per acre, 0.6 per acre. I think that may be because this ground is the only ground I've got that's rocky, and every time I plow it, I'm busting up some of those rocks. Probably releasing a little bit of lime into that soil. Maybe. The other reason may be simply because I have not farmed this field as long as I have that field up there. Could be it. I'll probably put a little sprinkling of lime on it and see how it goes from there. This field has a soil pH of 6.4, so it's a little on the low end, but still okay. The little bit of lime I put on it should put it right. So I'm pretty excited about it. I think this field is going to come around good. The cation, I want to say cation so bad I can't stand it. The cation exchange capacity here is 8.7. Still pretty good. Not the best. You want it to be from 8 to 12, somewhere in that line. So it still held moisture pretty good. It still fed my plants good. I had good corn. Even though we had a pretty good drought last year, and it's on a hillside, it still did pretty good. I can't complain about it. I've got plenty of clover growing in it right now, so nitrogen's not going to be an issue. We're getting moisture this spring, plenty of moisture. We're going to have a great cover crop on this. I can't wait to get a little lime on it and a little bit of sulfur and boron and zinc and see if we can't really improve it. I don't know. I don't know how to improve it more than it was last year as far as growth. It was great, but you'll be along to see it if it happens. All right, we're in field number 3. This is the field that really piqued my interest. I wanted to see why I was noticing certain things. I noticed last year when we were disking to put our cover crops in, it was totally dry. It was like powder. This field had some moisture still in it. I didn't understand why, but I figured this would tell me, and it did. Soil pH is 7.0, so it's right there at the high side. Does not call for lime. If I put lime on it, 1 grain of lime would take it too high, so it's fine. I had it limed years ago. I don't know if that's the reason or if it's this other reason. The thing about this field that really surprised me was the cation exchange capacity, cation. Okay, cation. 10.8 is by far the highest percentage of cation capacity that I have on any of my fields. And why is that the case? And I talked to the man at the store and he told me it has a lot to do with how much humus you can get in your soil. And then it clicked 2 years ago. I grew my corn 2 rows and I skipped and did 2 rows and skipped far enough apart to get my tractor in. And during the corn season, I grew soybeans in this field. They came up while the corn was about this tall and they followed the corn. The corn grew to be 12, 14 feet tall and the soybeans got to be waist deep. It was absolutely gorgeous. And as soon as we picked the corn, I disked the corn stalks and the soybeans up together and planted my crimson clover right in on it. And we had a dry fall that year and that just held the moisture and the crimson clover did better than ever. And evidently all of that added humus that we put in the ground as well as nitrogen made a condition where this soil is bioavailable for the plants. So I am extremely excited to see that it actually made a difference. I'll be doing that again this year, not just on this field. I want to do it on all my fields and I will be giving up some corn harvest. I know that, but some things are more important and that is getting this soil right to its optimal level so that I can raise good corn. And the thing about it is, I don't just want to come in here and throw a bunch of chemical fertilizer on it, because that's something you can't get away from and it just kills your soil. I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to build soil. That way when I feed my animals the grain from it, they're getting the good nutrients in their meat, and that meat goes into this carnivore human being. That's what it's all about. So I feel like with this field, that experiment worked. So I don't need to add any gypsum or lime in this field. It does call for a little phosphate, potash, sulfur, boron, and zinc. So I'll probably be throwing those items on here in a few weeks. I'll probably wait until it comes time to plow it under. That way I'm not having any of it degrade because of the sun. The sun can kill stuff, and I don't want that to happen. I'll get it on and get it plowed under so that it is there 100% in the ground and not going anywhere. Because I foresee we could have some downpouring rains as well, rain and sun. So very excited with this field. We have very high calcium and we have very high manganese. Not sure why, but they're very high. So anyway, that's this field. Let's go over to the house where my field number 4 is. We'll talk about that just a little bit. All right, here we are in the last field, field number 4. This here is very interesting to me because I have done things in this field I haven't done in the other fields, and that is I always have my silage here at the end of the field, and at the beginning of the season when it comes time to plow, I plow in my old silage that was the waste off top. This year I've got more waste than ever than usual because of a certain thing that happened. You might know what it was if you watch the channel, and if you don't, you can find it. But anyway, we plow this in, and I always plow in some stalks for every year from where we let our standing corn stand. This one actually has 9.3 of the cation exchange capacity, which means this field is better at holding the nutrients, making it available, and holding the water than the other 2 fields that only had 8 point something or other. That is strictly because I put all this back in. And something else this has is carbon. Corn stalks are high in carbon. That means they break down slowly. And I don't know if you know it, but every time you put 1 ton of carbon down onto an acre, a ton is not a lot for an acre. There's a ton here. Every time you put a ton down on an acre, you increase your water holding capacity by 20,000 gallons. That's not just a little bit. And that means when it gets dry, your field will have more ability to raise that crop than the guy down the road that does no-till. It's absolutely true. It's unbelievable. So the fact that we're plowing in the clover, we're going to plow in a bunch of soybeans, we're going to plow in a bunch of corn fodder and stalks, that right there is what makes the whole situation better. Your nutrients are available. There's 3 things very high in this soil already. One of them is calcium, one of them is potassium, and the other one is manganese. I did plow in a lot of sheetrock over the years. I've been in the business. I've been having lots of scrap sheetrock, and all that goes out here, that gypsum, and it also limes it. This soil pH here is 6.4, so it's not as high as it could be, and so naturally it calls for a little bit of lime, a little over half a ton per acre. If it calls for lime, you automatically know your soil is not at a 7.0. And that's not hard to rectify. We could throw some lime down. We will do it. Everything else is the same as the other fields. I need to add potash, boron, sulfur, and zinc. So I'm going to look into doing that and see how expensive it is, for one. I don't think it's going to be too bad. And number 2, this growing season and the following growing season, the cover crop growing season, to me is just as important as the corn growing season. If you got one growing great, you're gonna probably have the other one growing great. And so I'm gonna be plowing under all this carbon. It's gonna rot down and do great. I don't spread it right now because I don't want to shade out and pack down my cover crop. I need my cover crop to grow because that's my nitrogen. That is the apex when it comes to growing corn. You've got to have the nitrogen levels up. So that's what we're doing right now. We're just waiting through the spring. I'll be plowing it under about May. That's when it goes to those red blooms, crimson clover. When it's in the full bloom, that is the highest level of nitrogen you can get. It's time to put it in the ground. The other thing I do is I always mix my crimson clover with wheat. I pulled that with one handful. That's exactly how it was growing right there. The wheat is not much of a nitrogen builder, but it sends a message to the clover, we need nitrogen, and the clover will produce more nitrogen than it would have otherwise without the wheat. So it's just learning little by little how to do these things to make everything work right. True, we are dependent on a few natural things that we cannot produce ourselves, such as rain, sunshine, but if we get those things, it's up to us to do the things that take it to the next level and make it work. And this right here is exactly what it takes to make it work. I hope you enjoyed the video. I've had several of you asking me to get soil tests done. I did it. It wasn't very expensive. It wasn't very difficult. I'm glad I did it. Now I can look and I can see, hey, I need this, or hey, it's real high in that. I love that. I learned a lot about my soil. Plus I got confirmation about parts of my soil that I knew I had done something right. I just didn't know what. But anyway, that's all we got for you today. Be looking in the future. We're going to be doing some more videos out here doing this stuff, trying to fix up this soil. But that's all I've got for you today. Hope you have a great day. We'll see you on the next video.